This week we're talking about the cooperative games of 1983. Let's take a look at what else was going on in 1983 gaming. In arcades, we had Dragon's Lair, Spy Hunter, Elevator Action, Junior Pac-Man, just to name a few. In Japan, we saw both Nintendo's Famicom and Sega's SG-1000, and that would begin the third generation of home console gaming. That same year, the MSX home computer hit the shelves in Japan. This was the start of a new era of video games, and when it came to cooperative gaming, we saw a number of firsts as well, starting with Mario Bros. In the arcade. Mario Bros., a precursor to Super Mario Bros., takes us back to Mario's early adventures, introducing essential elements like pipes, turtles, and his brother Luigi. Set in New York City, plumbers Mario and Luigi tackle creatures emerging from sewers. Its 2D platforming mechanics involve flipping enemies and kicking them, growing challenging as the game progresses. The multiplayer mode adds competitiveness, but it gets even better when working together. This is the earliest example of a two-player co-op platformer that I could find. Graphically simple with basic sprites against black backdrops. The visuals retain appeal, while limited music and sound effects can be grating. Mario Bros. Holds historical significance, marking Mario's evolution. G.I. Joe Cobra Strike on Atari 2600. The game came out on the 2600 in 1983. Other than the name, G.I. Joe Cobra Strike has very little to do with the G.I. Joe franchise. The game plays similar to other 2600 games of the time, such as Breakout, Kaboom, Pong, and maybe even Space Invaders. But what sets this game apart from other Breakout-inspired games is the fact that you could play it cooperatively, using two paddle controllers. However, instead of bouncing a ball with paddles, your goal is to protect the running men below by blocking the missiles being dropped by the giant Cobra. On top of blocking the attacks, you are able to shoot the Cobra with missiles from the cannon on both sides. But in order to do so, you need to first move your paddle over to your cannon and then press the fire button. Once your men are all destroyed, the game ends. As mentioned before, this is a true co-op game. Unlike other 2600 games that feature co-op, this one doesn't have a competitive aspect to it as well. The score is shared between players, and working together is required to move forward. The giant Cobra must be hit around 8 times in order to move to the next level. You will then be presented with an almost identical Cobra, but with different colors. The graphics are simple, however, the giant Cobra sprite is pretty impressive for the 2600 hardware. This is one of the few instances where a character in a 2600 game actually looks like its source material. Another interesting feature in the game is when you plug a joystick in, a third player can join in and control the Cobra. This might not sound like much, but for the time, this was a pretty unique gameplay element. Overall, G.I. Joe Cobra Strike is a simple game. It may not be the best 2600 game, and by today's standards, it may seem outdated. But if you're looking for a unique co-op experience on the 2600, this is certainly a lesser-known classic that deserves some time. This is the definition of easy to play and hard to master. There aren't a lot of co-op games for the 2600, but this is definitely one of my favorites. Dracula on the Intellivision breaks the mold as one of the earliest games to cast players as the villain, embracing a unique premise of attacking innocent villagers for sustenance while evading authorities. Classical music and atmospheric effects enhance the experience, with eerie encounters such as frightened eyes peering from windows. The addition of simultaneous two-player gameplay when Dracula converts a villager into a zombie adds to the thrill. The game's control issues, particularly the sluggishness of Dracula's movements and jerky zombie controls, detract from its gameplay. Despite this, iMagic's creative approach shines through, showcasing dark humor, graphical finesse, objectives, and strategic depth. Dracula remains a rare gem, worth seeking out for its distinctive and engaging gameplay, whether through original cartridges or emulation. Dandy, later Dandy Dungeon, is a 1983 dungeon crawl maze game for the Atari 8-bit home computers, notable for being one of the earliest games with 4-player simultaneous cooperative play. Armed with bows and unlimited arrows, players navigate a maze filled with monsters, keys, locked doors, food, and bombs to locate the exit for each level. Reviving players is possible by shooting hearts, while an included editor allows players to create custom dungeons. Developed by John Howard Pavlovic during his time at MIT, inspired by Dungeons & Dragons and arcade maze games, Dandy influenced the design of the 1985 arcade game Gauntlet. Variations of Dandy were published for different platforms, and it was reworked into Dark Chambers. The name Dandy is a playful nod to Dungeons & Dragons. Diamond Mine is a mining-themed game developed by the Atari Program Exchange and was released on the Commodore 64. It offers 20 levels of gameplay. In each level, players control a mining car to collect diamonds from the field, while avoiding monsters. The goal is to cut and return the diamonds to the entrance. The game can be played solo or cooperatively, where two players navigate the levels, with advantages like dividing diamond collection and luring monsters away from each other. While it provides some enjoyment, the game's graphics and sound are subpar, and the challenge is relatively moderate, particularly in the cooperative mode. Laser Zone, created by Jeff Minter, stands as a challenging and captivating game, where players control two gunners on X and Y platforms, or split it up and play as a cooperative game. You're tasked with preventing approaching aliens from reaching their destination. Unique features like screen wrapping and diagonal fire enhance the gameplay, while vibrant graphics and animations add to its visual appeal. The game boasts a high score function, with a single entry by Minter himself. And despite its difficulty, Laser Zone remains an enticing addition to any Commodore 64 collection, leaving players eager for more attempts. Save New York is a shoot-'em-up released for the Commodore 64 in 1983 by Creative Software. It involves defending New York City from invading spider-like aliens on a static screen with skyscraper buildings. Players can choose between one or two-player mode, each controlling a colored airplane. The objective is to prevent aliens from devouring the buildings by shooting them. Bonus points are earned for saving intact apartments, and fuel canisters dropped by passing planes need to be collected for airplane fueling. Players can also land their planes to enter the subway tunnel, avoiding trains and countering descending blue aliens that threaten the building's basements. While planes can shoot the buildings and each other, this doesn't aid level completion. What are some other co-op games from 1983 that we might have missed? And if you enjoyed this video, tune in next week where we talk about the co-op games from 1984. And be sure to watch our last video from 1982. Thank you for watching.